So my name is Jacob Palmer. A lot of you might not have seen me before, but I'm a tech recruiter here at RecWorks. Been here for nearly 8 years now, and I've attended a lot of our technical meetups over those years. I attended the Unconference back in December, attend a lot of events through the Mindstone London AI meetup, the London Java community, and Front Engineers London as well. Always great to see such technical and passionate people getting together, either in person or online like today. It's this community work really that's kept me at RecWorks for all this time and showing that RecWorks can be a positive influence in this industry. In terms of our work in the recruitment space, we do a lot of work with our clients on building job specs and optimizing interview processes, to attract some really top talent, even in candidate-driven markets. So if you're hiring and struggling to find the right people, then just let me know. Or if anyone wants to chat about the state of the market from a recruiter's point of view, or would like to any CV advice, then just let me know. I'll drop my LinkedIn into the chat. Feel free to anyone just to send me a connection request. But without further ado, I'll introduce you to Nick now. So for those of you that don't know, Nick Black is a founder and chief product officer with extensive domain expertise in deep tech and AI. Between 2016 and 18, he scaled his startup from 35 to 150 people. And since then, he's helped investors and their startups do the same. So really looking forward to this talk and take it away, Nick.
Hey, hi everyone. Really good to be back here. Maybe some of you were at a previous talk I gave here. If so, welcome back. So just want to give a shout out to Jacob and the RecWorks team before we kick off, because, I met Barry, the founder of RecWorks, at one of the Mindstone AI events last summer and was kind of reminded of the amount of good that people in the community who organize these kind of events do. I do a bit of event organization myself, and it takes a lot of work. There's always a lot behind the scenes. So thank you, Jacob and Barry and the whole team at RecWorks for doing this.
Our pleasure.
And definitely echo what you said. I mean, be able to get your CV reviewed for free is pretty cool. Makes all the difference. So cool. So I'm Nick. As Jacob said, my background as a founder, which I'll introduce in a sec. I'm going to talk you through today some of the things I've learned both in my own company and in others that I've helped about scaling product teams. Few guidelines for getting the most out of today. This is definitely a team effort. So what I'd love to ask is for everyone to put your cameras on. It really helps me, and I think it helps everybody else as well. There's always good feedback on cameras being on. When I do feedback after sessions like this, things that people say they like and appreciate are input from the audience. So cameras on is my first ask. Thank you, Lucas and Gordon, for cameraing on. Everyone else, please give it a go if you possibly can. The next is get ready to chat. So again, this is not a one-directional dump from me. This is going to be quite interactive. I'm going to ask you some questions. And finally, be a challenger. This was actually one of our company values at CloudMade at my company, because I'm really passionate about empowerment. Genuinely, I believe that in product teams, the best ideas generally come from the engineers, not only because there are 8 times more engineers than product managers, so you're just statistically more likely to get it, but because there's something about being at the kind of coalface that if you as a good facilitator, as a product manager, if you can hold the room and you can load the right amount of data into the room's short-term memory to allow the people who really understand the technology to understand the business and the tech, that's where the great ideas come from. And I found as I scaled my company, I needed to empower all 150 people to really feel that they're able to challenge me and the salespeople and the senior execs and so on. So same today, be a challenger, ask questions, point out things you disagree with. What we're going to cover today is very far from a science. There's loads of different views on how this stuff can work. And I imagine, hopefully, there's some conflicting views in this room now. So those are my guidelines. Thank you to the people who turned your camera on. To everyone else who hasn't yet, what could go wrong if you turned your camera on? You got through 2 years of COVID with your cameras on. So have a go. So really quick intro to me. So as Jacob said, my background is as a founder. I started a startup in 2007 to exit 2016 and integration into the acquirer for a few years after that. My background before that was as a Ruby on Rails developer, back when that was the thing to do in London. As a founder at CloudMade, what we built in 2012, after a pivot, was a custom machine learning platform for the automotive industry. So we, at the time, back then, over sort of 3 years between 12 and 15, we built the models, the data layer and the application layer from the ground up over 4 years, which was a pretty cool experience to have been doing machine learning back in 2012 when it was nascent, not even knowing that machine learning was what we were doing. We were just trying to solve customer problems. And ultimately, after a few years, we hit on the commercial why the customers needed this amazing platform, which was to increase service profitability. As always, very simple, but when you get the language that works for the customers, things start to fly. So I'm not going to talk very much about the product side of things today because we're more on the art of scaling. I think, you know, I felt the pain of scaling because we did a very quick scale up at CloudMade from 35 people, which was the sort of core finding product market fit team, quite a big core team, but nonetheless, that's what we had. Then we went straight up to about 100, 150 people in one go. And I was I wasn't very involved, definitely not as involved as I should have been in the whole process. And then we had what you often get, which is you realize 50 of those 150 people are totally the wrong people. They don't share our values whatsoever. There are 50 in there or 25 or so who are really good, and they're now looking for different jobs because they're working in a kind of shitty, dysfunctional organization. And so we had to do a big clear out and cut back down to sort of 50, 60 and start to rebuild again. And that wasted 18 months of my time. And as a founder, the 18 months translates directly into cash in the bank because that's part of an earnout. Even if you're not incentivized financially like that, as a CTO, you know, as a senior technical leader, there's few things more painful than, you know, having badly set up teams where people don't know what their job is, they don't like the people they're working with, there's lack of clarity. You know, I found you can tackle the hardest problems out there with some of the worst customers. And if your teams are aligned and set up the right way, you feel like you can conquer anything. So I hope to share a little bit of what I learned about that today. Ultimately, this is just a quick one of the product that we built at CloudMade, a prediction system for cars. This is an example of the application layer. So this runs on 2 screens in a car and on mobile, and now widely used by car makers like Stellantis. So I did that in my own company. Then since then, I worked with private equity funds like Nordic Capital, helping transform some of their companies, particularly around this kind of organization, product strategy, org design. One of the most fun ones I worked on was a fintech Rain, where we added about 150 engineers or something over 6 months, whilst they sort of helped with the company structure there. That was good fun. So that's a bit of intro of my background. Now, as my little cunning cue says, Zoom polls, I don't have Zoom polls because I forgot to send my Zoom link for this meeting, but we'll just use the chat instead. So this part really helps me personalize the content. I'm going to ask you to answer a question in Zoom chat, which is, why are you here? And you might have heard of the 5 whys of Toyota, right? So, you know, we're here because it sounds interesting. Well, why does it sound interesting? Well, we want to fix our team organization. Well, why do you want to fix your team organization? So try and drop me some ideas here in Zoom that goes deep as you can in a couple of minutes on why are you here? Okay, cool. Thanks, Andy. So culture. Do's and don'ts, solid. So I'd challenge you, Amory, tell me if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, to what's important to you? Like, why do you want to avoid making mistakes? Because everyone wants to avoid making mistakes. And there's 5 webinars a day. But what is it about these mistakes that are scary or worthy of your time here? Just drop that into the window if you're up for that. And Russell, what's hard about that? What is specifically hard about building this group? And Chandri, why do you want to understand common problems in scaling at scale? Why? Why now? Yeah, expensive mistakes. So try go deep. This is an exercise I used to do a lot. My product managers learn to like it, going deep. I find, probably all worked with frustrating salespeople who don't really get the product. I find a big litmus test of sales failing is when they can't go 2 whys deep on why the customer wants to buy our product, let alone 5. And then they get defensive and storm out of the room. Cool. Thank you for that. Thank you for playing along with my annoying 5 whysing. Cool. And so, let me ask the same question a different way and just give your instinctive answer. What would make this session a 10 out of 10 for you? Interesting. Great. Generalized. Great. Thank you for all of this. Okay. Then final question, so I understand where we are. Can you just drop a few lines about your job title? Because I normally know we're talking to CTOs, VP Eng, senior engineers, and just roughly the stage of your company, however you want to phrase it. How many people you've got is probably a good idea. Great. Thanks, Chandri. Okay, we'll keep those rolling. Just PDC, okay, they're really good. Great. Okay, I'm going to kick off now. You actually get some content from me. So I want to start by just talking a bit about the optimistic view, because scaling can go really wrong, but it doesn't have to. And this is what it looks like when it goes well. I want to frame us first on the vision where we're going. So say hello to our 2 founders. They just closed their Series A financing, and now they're ready to scale. I'm going to give you a little story about how they do it. So as they grow from a team of 50 people, about 30 engineers, they know they need to focus on building alignment. So at this phase of the 30 engineers phase, they start to get deliberate on strategy. They start to really decide what they're doing more than whatever it takes. They set a North Star, and they prioritize a handful of strategies to focus on. Now, I call it a strategy, but you could call it a big rock. You could call it a bet. There's lots of different words used. There are certain bets that you can place as a startup. And these guys, our 2 founders here, they've prioritized a handful of those that their team are really aware of. And this works well. They have a North Star metric that focuses everyone's attention. And then they distribute these ideas for strategies, the bets they're going to place with their product spend underneath that. And everything is driving that North Star. So they can see which of those bets are paying off. They've got proxy metrics set up that show them that, and they see that traction. But not only do they see that, all of the team see it. So everyone's always very clear on what it is they're going after. Now, as they take the next phase, because they were successful, right? As they grow past 30 engineers, they strengthen their fit. They get to know their customer better, basically, that means. And they take the next step in their evolution. In this time, what they do is they set up permanent squads. So in the past, what they were doing was saying, well, we got these 30 or 50 or so engineers, and we got these 3 or 4 strategies, and we're just going to be really agile. And we're going to say, If this particular strategy needs 15 people and 3 data scientists, we'll just make that team. And then when we're done with that, we'll flip next week and we can borrow people between teams because it's all about going very fast. That's the mode they did previously. Now where they get to is they set up permanent squads. So they have maybe seven or eight different squads. They have permanent squad leaders. They have strategies that they're working on long term, more than 90 days. And they have a team which really doesn't change very much. And what this does, as you can see, it allows subcultures to form within the company. So there's no accident to this image here. You can see the different desks that are here. These are each of the different teams with people sitting on. So you have a company culture, a way of doing things, a shared vision, a shared set of goals, which is the North Star. And then you have team cultures. Different teams can develop different ways of doing things. If one squad, which is working on one part of the app, needs to approach things in one way, and another one needs to approach things in another way, they have the latitude to do this. But everyone's core identity here is focused on the metric that they're driving for their team. So they're chasing the company North Star, and then they're chasing their team's metric. And those are two of the things that make success. What that means is that these teams are autonomous. So each of these teams is cross-functional. So it brings together sales, customer success, engineering, and product to solve customer problems. So what we're not talking about here is having a front-end team and a back-end team. That's the kind of thing that can work up to finding fit. What we're talking about here is having teams aligned behind a specific strategy, a bet that you're placing, and a specific goal, to allow this expertise to develop in these squads and to allow cross-fertilization of ideas. Ultimately, what this means is their employees love it. This company is a good place to work because people have extreme clarity over their goals. When I come into work each day, I know what I have to do to be successful. Now, it's not always rosy. Not everything is great, okay? There are crises and there are times when things go wrong. But as I alluded to at the beginning, when people understand their place within the system, when I come into work and I know, yeah, this is a really, really difficult goal we've got to achieve, but the other 8 people on my squad, they're the right people for this job. They're dedicated. They're not going to be here one day and disappear another because they get borrowed by the founder for a secret project. And we're all speaking the same language. We all know what success looks like. That is a magic formula for success. So they made it. They made the next scaling phase. They scale up to 100, 150 people. And from there, they're able to continue growing their revenue. Because, of course, in startup world, we're all on this wild rocket ship ride to find product market fit, grow revenue to 10 million, grow revenue to 50 million, grow to 100, exit as a unicorn, right? That's what the investors want. That's what the money is for. So that's the blueprint of how to do things. I want to dive into some of the things that are needed. I hope I will give you a generalized framework to do that for each of those steps. So there are sort of 3 things that I find you're trying to do when scaling teams. The first is maintaining product quality as you grow. So typically, it's pretty hard to get to product market fit without a good quality product in some way. Now, that will often be the front-end experience of the customer is great, but the back end's a complete disaster, right? So quality can be separable. But the key challenge you then get is, okay, we need to maintain the quality of the product, whether that's retention, NPS, whatever your quality metric might be. We need to retain that, and we need to add more people who are no longer the experts who really understand how the customer thinks and how we do things around here. So that's one big challenge. The second is alignment. So again, in the early days, when you're less than 30 people, when you can get, the CTO and the heads of engineering and the product managers and the founders and the sales in one room and one table, alignment is difficult, but alignment kind of happens. You don't need to put that much deliberate effort into alignment in the early days. Step forward to, and for me, this was the magic 35 people mark. Like at 35, it was great, and at 40, it was awful. Once you start to get too many people to be able to have this natural alignment, you have to really focus on how you're going to connect the messages you're hearing from the customer with the product that's being built and communicate decision-making and delays and customer demands and so on. And that becomes something that has to be very deliberate. The final thing is you really need to get this right first time, as many of you have alluded to, of not wanting to make mistakes. There's a lot of things that you need to iterate on and make mistakes when doing. And there's a lot of things in startups and tech startups that you can't go to a webinar and learn how to do, right? You need to figure out your own growth strategies. You need to work out what messaging works for you. You need to work out which specific product strategies work for you. No one can tell you what strategy is going to work for you. But things like company organization, metrics, the setup I'm showing you, this is relatively generalizable across all startups. So one quick bit of terminology of how I think about things to start to frame things, and then we'll move forward. So there's the kind of product market fit hunting stage. And some of you I saw, you know, Lucas, you're probably, your pre-seeds, you're finding product market fit. I kind of characterize that as, you know, when you're finding PMF, you have one squad by default, and that is one type of work that you're doing, characterized by very frequent changes of direction. You then generally find some fit. Maybe you get your first 5 to 10 customers in B2B, you're hitting $1 million revenue, but then you need to extend that fit. Maybe, you know, the customers aren't quite all in the same category, or the market is actually tiny, so you need to take a big leap. Maybe you have some quality problems. So you need more people to fix the problem, and you get into this extending fit phase. The extending fit phase is characterized by what I call hybrid squads. Hybrid squads, it's cross-functional. So you have different people of different disciplines, sales, product, engineering in one squad team. And by the way, squad and team I use interchangeably. You do have some sharing of resource. So particularly, you probably don't have a data scientist per squad, a designer per squad. There may be times we need to share product managers, but I really advise against trying to do that. Senior engineering people, solutions architects, they're going to be shared between squads, right? If you need those type of people. So sharing is good and should be encouraged in this. And you also have frequent changes of focus, because we haven't really got product market fit. Everyone always thinks they've got product market fit too soon. They lock things down, they get rigid, and then they find they didn't have it and it's a disaster, right? Many companies do that. So this kind of messy middle here is one where you need to have some of the structure to build alignment so that people know what their job is, and you can have multiple squads running, but you can't really lock things down in a very regimented, highly organized way because you don't know what you're doing yet. You then get to the true scaling phase, which is indicated by very strong fits. You have cross-functional teams, very little sharing of resource at this stage. Hopefully each squad has a fixed number of people who are part of it, so you start to build that squad culture. And each squad is focused on one strategy at a time. Now, there are definite error bars on my numbers here. You know, you could argue that you should do hybrid squads up to 75, 100. You could argue that you should fix things sooner. When I work with companies on this, I understand their culture and the specifics of what's going on with them to figure out what these numbers are. So take this as a guidance. The more important thing here is things like the pace at which decisions are being changed. If you're in an environment where you're rapidly changing some of the fundamental assumptions of your business, like who is the ideal customer profile, what are the headline value propositions for them, and that's pushing a lot of changes into products, then it's not the right time to lock in squads. If you're doing a hyper scale up and you've got loads of like cash in the bank and you just need to be going very fast, and you need this vast roadmap being pushed on you, then you need to start to lock down more ordered, regimented squads. So that's some of the guidance. What I'm going to take you through now is like 3 or 4 just kind of snippets of, and this is definitely the tip of the iceberg, but the key things I've learned that make this type of team org work. So the first is setting a North Star metric. Give me a quick response of some kind. Maybe you can do an emoji, like a thumbs up. Yeah, give me a thumbs up in the chat message if you have a North Star metric today. And by this, I mean, you know, the top level metric that sits above all others. Do you have a North Star today? An example of a North Star would be weekly active teams, 30-day retention. So give me a quick shout there in the Zoom chat if you've got one. So for example, I would put thumbs up because I do, oh my God, and that killed the sharing, that thumbs up. That was interesting. I do that again. Okay, oh, you're thumbs upping my thing. Cool. Okay, that's good. Keep on doing that. So if for anyone who hasn't done that in the chat window, we are thumbs upping or downing. So Lucas and Chandri has North Stars. A few of you don't. Great. So really quickly, the potted version of how to set up a North Star. I mean, why bother with the North Star? Number one, because it is the critical alignment point between the goals of the company, which is generally sell more stuff, grow revenue, and the work of product, which is to get users to love the product. So the North Star sits in between those two worlds of sell, 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 and just make revenue with, well, actually, let's actually build a product that creates a lot of value both for the buyer and the end user. The North Star links those two together. The way you get a North Star is by asking the question, how would our customers behave if they loved our product? Customers, behave, love, key things. So this is not increase revenue. It's not hit a 20% compound annual growth rate. It's not close our next round, right? The North Star is a customer behavior. So something observable and measurable through your product analytics. It's a graph you can see in Mixpanel or Amplitude. The reason it's the behavior is because, before we get brain interfaces, which are of course on the way, the only thing we can ultimately do in product is influence customers' behavior. We can't control what people think, and we can't measure what they think, but we can deeply, deeply influence how they behave in our product. So when we focus all our wood behind the behavior arrow, when we say, yeah, we want to grow sales, let's get down to the business of what are the customer behaviors we need to influence to grow sales, it creates this focus. I've seen that. I saw that happen in my own company. I used to go on and on about, we got to grow sales. We got to grow sales. Why aren't we growing sales? And when I switched the narrative and said, we need to get more customers into meetings, which then result in more meetings, it completely changed how the team thought about product. What you then do is you choose the metric that best represents the goals of your startup in the next 6 to 18 months. So for example, we say, look, we think people who, how our customers behave if they love their product. Imagine we're building a SaaS tool for people in finance. We think the CFO would be using this product weekly, and we think the financial controllers would be there daily. Every day they should be looking at day sales outstanding and customer billing. So our North Star metrics, that's the behavior. So first we talk about the behaviors. Then we say, okay, well, let's optimize this for the financial controllers. Let's get those users in using it. So what's a metric that could represent them? Well, a metric could be weekly active users, or it could be daily active users. So we're looking for something that really cuts to the heart of how value is created in the product. It could be even deeper, like projects created or certain actions taken. The final step is that you then align all of your company activities. So this needs sponsorship of the CEO. You align all of your activities to those that drive the best North Star, drive the North Star. And the companies that I've worked with who've done this the best are the ones where we've done this exercise over a few hours to find the North Star. Then the CEO or the CTO or whoever stands up and they say, okay, this is our North Star. Does everyone understand it? And we talk about it for half an hour. Then we say, okay, I want everybody to write a list of 5 things you're going to stop doing right now because it doesn't drive the North Star. And that includes you in HR and you in finance. This is everybody. And I want another list of the 5 things we're going to do to accelerate that North Star. And when you do this well, and you sort of really encourage the team to do this, you get amazing results back. Like it's absolutely stunning how when you put a little bit of spotlight on a particular metric, you get amazing ideas throughout the team. The companies that I've worked with who do this badly, this is the kind of thing that tends to happen. They set a North Star that's a commercial goal, not a behavior. I may be preaching to the converted here because you guys are running technical teams daily. Engineers, in my experience, don't get very excited by top-level sales growth. That's not why we got into this. That doesn't mean, we're a bunch of kind of communist hippies who don't care about success of the business. It just means that we have a level of interest within a product team. And that level of interest is building a great product so that it creates a great business. But there are other people focused on that great business part. We're going to focus on the great product part. The second thing is set and forget. We did this workshop with you, Nick. It's all done. We'll come back in 6 months. Like any messaging inside a company, you need to kind of just go on and on about the North Star daily in the stand-ups for a few weeks, and then at least weekly in team meetings. This is our North Star metric. This is how it's changed. These are the 5 strategies that are best contributing to it. These are the people who've done the best work this week in driving it. These are the areas we've identified. The third thing is then not having second-order proxy metrics. So this would be, often North Star, the lagging indicators. Retention, 30-day retention is often quite a good one. But then you need a metric which is predictive. So for example, that would be the actual use of the product. So like the percentage of users using this feature each week. It was 20%. Now we're going to get it to 25. Then we'll get it to 30. Then we'll get it to 35. So that's what I mean by proxy metrics. Okay, so that's my little piece on North Star metrics. Hand over to you for a few minutes. What are you taking away about North Star metrics? Back in the chat. Yeah, it's ongoing. You can't set and forget. What else? Yeah, behavior. That's the big one. So customer behavior is something our customers do in the product. Because we're building this hypothesis, right, that if people use our product, if the CFO comes in here once a week and produces a report, we believe that they're going to pay to renew us each month. We believe that if CFOs come and build reports, we'll be able to sell this to other CFOs. So we're getting quite specific on our hypothesis about what makes users love the product. Love it. Cool. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to talk now about the strategies and proxy metrics. So I initially talked about strategies, and I was saying, think of a strategy as a bet. So there's all kinds of things you can do. If you really boil it down, right, let's say you're spending £250,000 a month on R&D, reasonable sized team, right? Of that £250,000, there's some kind of an ROI that's needed. Your company is probably looking for a 10x ROI over a certain number of years. So we're going to turn that 250,000 a month, let's say 3 million a year spend. That needs to lead to at least 30 million of increased sales over the next 18 months. Let's say that's the equation, right? Well, within the 250,000 we're spending a month, think of it as you're going to a casino, right? You can place those bets in different places. And that's what our strategies are. Our strategies are ideas we have for things we can build, because we're trying to build a product. Things we can build, our customers are going to love. They're going to buy. It's going to solve some burning problem that the customers have, a pain. Money follows pain after all. The end users are going to like it, and it's going to build some defensibility. So always looking for this combination of something the customers need because it solves a pain point, but something that is defensible and different as well. Because if we just build something that the customers love that isn't defensible, well, that's just easy to copy and the competitors are going to come and nail us. If we just build something that's really hard to copy and no one wants, then that's just tech for the sake of tech. So with that in mind, the first thing we do once we have our North Star metric, we brainstorm the features we want to build, and then we cluster them together into the type of impact it has on the customer. Not into the type of feature it is or the tech it uses or the type of AI it's built with, but into the type of impact it has for the customer. I think I'm going to show you an example after this. You then prioritize the highest impact ones. So I like to use ICE prioritization, impact, confidence, effort. So you might have 15 ideas. These are the things we can, spend our R&D money on in this quarter that's going to lead to impact. You prioritize the highest impact one. What is impact? Impact is your estimation, prediction, guess at which one is going to drive the North Star best. Not some abstract, oh, this one's going to drive sales because the salespeople said it would. This is the feature that we build is going to have the biggest impact on retention. This is the one that's going to get the most people using our product weekly. So this type of focus on engagement within the product, this is what creates a product that users absolutely love and leads to explosive growth later on. Much more common in Silicon Valley than in the UK now. One of the things I'm trying to change. You then focus on one strategy per squad. Now, if you're 150 people, this is pretty easy, and you must do it when you're like at 100 plus engineers. When you're less than that, this is harder, but still, you really need to be doing one thing at a time. Like you cannot have, if you just boil it down to the engineer, it's somewhat obvious, right? That engineer can't work on two things at the same time. So we need some kind of separation, whether that's, 2 week sprints, 2 weeks on one strategy, 2 weeks on another, 6 week sprints, whatever it is, we need to get that focus. So what do I specifically mean by a strategy? What I have here is one quite generic one for B2B SaaS. So we've done this exercise and we've said, well, the strategy that we're going for is fast onboarding. So we've looked at all the stuff we can do. We think actually what's going to drive the biggest impact of our North Star is onboarding people quicker. Because we looked at the funnel and we got loads of people sitting up here waiting to be onboarded, and we're just not doing a good job of it. The activation metrics are terrible. The customer support is overloaded. So let's fix that. Let's speed up the rate at which people get onboarded into the product. And we assign a team to do this. And we say to that team, your goal, the metric, the proxy, I'll call it here, is the percentage of new users adding 5 contacts in the first 24 hours. Because we've identified through our analytics, our product managers are doing a good job. We believe this is the activation metric. And we're putting a bit of a punt as well. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Remember, no metric is ever completely correct. But we have different strategies. So we said, well, that's one thing we're doing this quarter. But in this quarter, we're also going to run a notification strategy. And we're going to measure that by the percent of users who engage with more than 3 notifications a month. So these proxy metrics are absolutely beautiful for the product teams, right? Because you cut down all the noise. We say, you can do whatever you want. You can use the smartest like generative AI notifications you can think of. Remember, we're trying to increase the percent of users who engage with more than 3 notifications a month, more than 20 a month, more than 3 a week, whatever it is. So by measuring things here by percentages, rather than by raw numbers, we're building a scalable engine, right? This isn't just, oh, let's add some more users. This is, let's actually engineer our product so that it is delivering, so that it's doing what it should do. It's working like an engine should work. Oh, did I not show you that next? I think I hadn't showed you hadn't built that there. So this is it's just an example, the full set of strategies. You've got access to this. My assumption here is there are 3 different squads, 3 different teams, or at least 3 entities that can be assigned these 3 different things at the same time. If you have more than 3 strategies, you just prioritize them. Let's say you have 2 teams here, but we can only work on 2 at a time. So let's maybe, like I said, do a 6-week sprint, which is what we actually did at CloudMate. It worked really well for us. We're going to give 6 weeks. We will try not to interrupt the development teams if we can really help it. And we can do strategy A for 6 weeks and strategy B for another 6 weeks. And we can measure the results of each one. So that was a really quick overview to this, but curious to know how good a job I've done of explaining. So what are you taking away about strategies and proxy metrics? Yeah, it has relation to OKRs, but I think these strategies work better than OKRs for product teams. I find OKRs basically you end up sort of having to retrofit what's being done by the product team into the OKR format. And I really dislike the 90-day phrasing of OKRs until you're a really big company. Because like, what if we can achieve the goal in 6 weeks? Isn't that better? What if it takes 14 weeks? You know, so that there's a lot of reasons I've found that this kind of works better than OKRs. Limited customers, proxy difference. Yeah, you'd have to have really limited. So I've used metrics like this in seed stage startups and it works well because you're looking at percentages, right? So if you only have like 10 users, it's going to be a bit sketchy, but still, this is with literally 10 users on a new B2B platform I worked with the company launching last year. We said, well, what the CEO, what is the actual goal? Do you want 100% of them using it? Do you want 100% using it every day? 100% using every week? What are we trying to achieve? So it's a really good way of framing things. What it looks like as a process. That's a good point. I can try and come back to that at the end. Remind me of that one. Okay, so Okay, so I want to talk final part of the sort of tips here is setting up squads. So give me a show of hands, like who is using some kind of a squad structure, even if it's flexible squads today. There we go. You can give me a thumbs up, thumbs down in the Zoom chat. A few people using. So 3 kind of big conditions to make squads, cross-functional teams work. The first is they need to be tightly aligned. So one of the things we're trying to do here is distribute decision-making. So we go from this model of, founder and head of sales and so on and call all the shots to saying, well, actually, we're going to have the product manager, the engineering manager, the designer, whatever that typical troika we normally end up with. We're going to devolve decision-making to them. They're going to be able to make a lot of their own decisions. And we do that because it makes things faster. We can move faster as a company when we give these people 6 weeks to kind of execute their way of doing things. Now, if you're not tightly aligned behind a North Star that is a good North Star and everyone agrees on, it's a disaster. Because then you get all these teams going in different directions and someone thinks what they got to do is this and someone thinks you got to do that. So we're looking for tight alignment at the North Star level and the proxy metric level. But we're looking for loose coupling. So what loose coupling means is if I have 2 squads, squad 1 and squad 2, squad 1 and 2 are largely independent of each other. So there is minimum cross dependencies. So squad 1 doesn't have to wait for squad 2 to get some stuff done. They're both working in the same code base at the same time. We really need extreme clarity for this to work well. So where companies are too early to go full squads is where you're still finding fit and you just don't have that clarity. So you've got to get ready now for a total eye chart. I'm going to show you a massive diagram. So deep breath in. I'm going to show it and I'm going to let you just kind of absorb it for a bit and I'm going to talk through it because it's quite an important one. Okay, ready? Okay, big. I'm going to let you absorb it a little bit. Up at the top, you've got your North Star metric. Let's say it is weekly active users. Then down here, you've got all of your teams or squads. Now, each of these has an outcome, a described mission. So growth, your job is to grow our total number of active users by 50% in the next year. Strategy 1, your job is to increase the number of people engaging with notifications. Strategy 2, your job is to increase the quality of the content we produce, and so on. So it's a written mission statement. You can phrase this exactly like an OKR. It's a goal. It's an end point that you go to. And it also has a single metric. So you use this mission statement and metric, which each of these teams has. And I'm going to show you an example of that next. Within each of these teams, we have a mixed bunch of people. So in the growth team, there's a lead, there's an SDR, a copywriter, and there's maybe a front-end developer because we're doing loads of kind of growth hacking. We're doing some stuff in no code, but we need to do some web scraping to get lists. So we put a front-end developer into this team. You move over here into a strategy team. We've got a very conventional squad here, right? You've got some QA, some data engineering, some full stack people. You've got a conventional team. Now, One of the things to consider here is, are you ready to lock things down rigidly like this? Because what we're looking at here is a kind of full squads model. If you're not quite so ready to lock it down rigidly, start to think about a hybrid version, which is basically the weakest hybrid version. Is you say, product manager, you own strategy 1. Product manager, you own strategy 2. Growth lead, you own growth 1. And then you as the CTO, maybe with the chief product officer, you allocate resources as needed. Because if you're kind of less than 100 people, I think you're less than 60, you can do that, right? You know who your people are, you know what they're good at, you know where their strengths are. You can do that manual allocation. That helps you because it helps with focus. But what's even better is if you can give the product manager a buddy to work with. Because we really know that this troika, when you get the product manager, the engineering manager, the designer, and so on working together, you get amazing things. So try, if you want to go lightweight, dip your toe into squads, try just assigning the product manager to a fixed strategy, and then just lightly add to that by saying, well, actually, your PM1, you're going to always work with this tech lead for the next 6 months. And then maybe you get a data scientist, you get to know each other, but we have some flexibility. And that's what we actually did at CloudMade, up to about 50, 60 people. I was leading one of the squads, and I had a data scientist, a product manager, a designer that I worked with, and then the engineers, we kind of swapped in and out because, some weeks we were busier than others and we needed different skills, and we had, 2 people who knew how to do the machine learning, and they were shared between everybody. So this is not a binary, it's either squads or it's just, free for all. There's lots of stages in between that we can find. Down here, you've got a platform team. Now, some of the real purest versions of squads, there is no platform team and everyone's just in the code base doing everything. I've never actually met anyone who's actually done that. So it's still yet to meet. Right? This is how, what I'm going to do now is overlay the strategies that we looked at onto this. So each team has a mission and a single metric. This is the single metric. So growth, their job, and this is what we had at CloudMade actually, the number of demo meetings booked each month. Onboarding, activated customers. Strategy 1, we called it wow factor demos, the demo NPS. So strategy 1, your job is to increase the NPS of the demo. Just go and do it however you see fit. Put demands into the platform team here. We need a better way of doing this. This isn't working. This inference isn't working well. This part of the machine learning really sucks. And then what the platform team do is they make sure they're creating APIs that are accessible by everybody. Similarly, we had a navigation team. They had more technical metric, the percentage of predictions with no user override. We had a third strategy team that was looking at new business, cost savings for fleets. So these things here in the top, these are the strategies, the big bets we're placing. This implies there were 15 other ideas that we came up with that we decided not to do. We just focused on these 3. We had a permanent team, sort of semi-permanent team assigned to this, and they had a very clear metric which told them they were doing a good job. Okay, really quickly, I want to talk a bit about guilds, because these are often overlooked. The guild is basically, the way we got to this problem at CloudMade, we had a QA engineer, a QA manager who'd been with us for ages, and he was a line manager. So we had like 8 QA people reporting to him. And in the management team, we'd look and we say, this guy is not a very good line manager. But when we talk to people in the company, they'd say, he's the best manager ever. And we just couldn't figure it out. And it was because he wasn't a good line manager. He didn't really like doing performance reviews. He didn't really like, all of that, picking your team and encouraging them and doing the salary negotiations. But he was the best guy at QA. He was like a legend at QA, and people would come to him and ask him, and he presented at local conferences and all this kind of thing. We were like, well, obviously that's really important. We need those technical experts. We need people who are really good at QA. So let's just tell him he doesn't have to be a line manager. Let's find the people in our company who like line managing people and make them line managers. And then let's find the experts. So we had a growth guild leader whose job was to be the growth expert. We had, and this is an example of a smaller one, but we had a embedded C++ guild leader. We had a design guild leader. And they have jobs which is consistency of product. So they're making sure that within these squads that are moving fast and going all over the direction, they don't go too far apart. So there's we had a solutions architect guild leader who would just keep an eye on each of the squads and make sure that they were using the same core architecture. The design leader was very busy making sure these squads use the same design principles. So these are horizontal bands. Really important to have. Okay, I'm going to start to summarize now and hopefully try and leave you some time, some questions. No squads, hybrid squads, full squads, error bars on the numbers. Who decides what to build? Who does resource planning? Who does alignment? No squads, let's be honest, it's generally the founder who decides what to build. As we move into hybrid, it's hybrid because the founder still has the insights. So we're not just going to say, no, founder, we're not going to listen to you anymore. You get to do like one all hands a month and that's it. The founder can then start to work with the squads to multiply her or his influence, which founders really like. Once we're at full squads, it's really the squad lead who makes the decisions. We don't want people reaching deep into the squads because that kills the motivation of people and it's just inefficient. The resource planning is totally sprint-based at squads. When you're in hybrid, it's a bit in between. You can still shift people around. When we're at full squads, there is no resource sharing between squads. We don't do that. You're a dedicated team. You get to know each other. You're executing together. Alignment with no squads, pre-product market fit, one team, one goal. Alignment with hybrid squads, many teams, many goals. And the same in full squads, teams with goals. I'm going to skip over this one, so I've overrun a little bit, and talking about getting ready to grow. So to summarize things here, right? We talked about maintaining product quality as you grow, aligning product and tech with sales, getting your team structure set up first time. The areas that I found I can be kind of helpful with teams that are doing this is really like this. With product market fit, I do a bit of founder coaching and helping direct focus the most important items most of the time. Where things get really interesting is extending fit. So this is where it's important to get the North Star set up, to get the proxy metrics set up, to set up team structures. And this is where we don't want to do it wrong and come back 6 months later and realize it was a bad North Star. Let's just spend a couple of days figuring out what it is properly, put it in place. Then as we go up to scaling, as we're ready to start to formalize that squad structure a bit more, I typically help adjust what is there already to make it more aligned with the company goals. Do a bit of leadership coaching to help you kind of figure out, okay, these are the specific challenges we're having here. This is working here, this isn't working there. How does that work? What's your experience? And do quite a bit of auditing and refinement of the strategy themselves. Because this is a stack, right? It's what's our company goal? What's our North Star metric? What are the strategies? How are we organizing the teams? It's very hard to separate one of those layers from another. One problem in one layer is normally reflective of a problem at another layer of the stack. Okay, so that's everything from me today. Bitly wasn't working for me, so I would normally give you a really nice link to download these slides, but Bitly wasn't playing before this, but you can just screenshot this and give it to ChatGPT and it'll give you the links anyway, so I guess that's not a problem anymore. Do feel free to connect. LinkedIn is a good way to get me, or email. You can even ping me on WhatsApp, which people like to do. Happy to take like 1 or 2 questions now. Thank you for hanging around. And if you need to go to take a break or anything, please do. Okay, good. Wow, straight in. I was going to start with Russell there. What roles and group activities should take care of thinking, leading on everything you've covered? As in, who should be responsible for building the squad structure and getting the alignment? It should be, yeah.
Just everything you've covered is almost like everything that isn't covered in most companies, right? And that can come from the outside and gets to do because no one else gets to do it. So rather than bring you in, who would you expect to be doing this in a company?
Yeah, I mean, without giving it too kind of, well, who would I expect? And so I would hope it's a combination of founder, CPO, CTO, because you need to have all those parties on board. And it probably needs to be pretty equal between them. But I mean, why I'm kept very busy is because people just don't have those skills, because often we haven't done this before and we need someone to help. But if the founder isn't bought in, it's a disaster. And it's just like anything in product, CTO and CPO need a high level of alignment as well. And that's kind of a lot of what I end up doing is building that alignment. How to avoid politics and conflict over which strategy squad gets prioritized. I mean, like I said, I'm really into empowerment and doing things transparently. So what I would do is get all of the leaders together, however you define leaders, which should include the product managers who lead the squads, and do that session with them. We go, okay, today we're going to first do a brainstorm on everything we could do. Then we're going to narrow it down. And I do a lot of voting. So you get votes, but we don't just say which is our favorite strategy. We say which do we think is going to have the highest impact on the North Star. And you can challenge people's votes, right? You can say, well, why are you voting on that? That's not going to impact the North Star. And that's where the really interesting conversations come in, because you often change your mind. The founders will often change their mind. And the more junior people who are often not exposed to this, they start to learn a lot about what impact really is for the business. So big, it could be 10, 15 people in a session if it's well run. That is the best way to avoid politics. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Hope you have a good rest of the afternoon. Feel free to reach out. And I'm not very active in the LCTOs Slack channel at the moment, I'm afraid. I've got quite a lot on, so I'm not there. But do, ping me direct if there's anything I can help with. Thanks for being a great crowd today. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks for coming, everyone. Speak soon.